And today's guest on the Financial Planner Live podcast is Ceri Griffiths from Willowbrook Financial Planning. She is a partner of St. James's Place. And today we talk about her target niche client, which is women divorcing multi-millionaire CEOs. This is a super niche episode, and we talk about all the training, all the coaching that she has received through entrepreneurial communities to hang her hat on this niche. We talk about developing client relationships. We talk about the client journey with these women who are divorcing the multimillionaire CEOs. This is a super interesting episode for anybody plucking up the courage to niche down within financial planning. Ceri, thank you so much for joining me today on the Financial Planner Live podcast. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Still sort of really super impressed with your business from our pre-podcast chat a few days ago. And for the listeners who weren't present for our chat, can you just tell us a little bit about your business, Willowbrook, and who you look after when it comes to clients?
Yeah, it is really distinctive. So I give financial advice exclusively to women who are divorcing CEOs and millionaires. So very super niche. My aim is to remove the financial vulnerability and disadvantage that they face. So that's what it's all about. And then the vision is a future where it's easy and attractive for women to be money savvy. So that's the concept behind everything that I do.
That's fantastic. So just out of interest, how did you fall into or decide upon the niche of women divorcing multi-millionaire CEOs?
So it's really evolved. It didn't start there. Obviously, it's been a journey to get there. So the business started about 4.5 years ago. And I had a lead up. I knew I was going to start a business. I was starting from scratch and I could design and create what I wanted it to do. And so I took a piece of paper, you know, the ikigai stuff, where you actually look at what is it that you really love? What is it that you can really add value to? And where can you make money? I considered those. I had 3 columns and literally wrote down, okay, who are all the people that I could really add value to? Who do I love working with? And where can I actually make a business that makes financial sense? And divorcing women came out on top. So that became the focus of the business to start with. And it flew. You know, I started in October 2019. I was really poorly, actually. I had sepsis, and so I didn't launch the business properly until 2020 in COVID times. And the business flew, and really quickly, I had to reassess where I was. So working with divorcing women, getting too many inquiries, getting really busy, and really starting to establish, actually, this is where I can add more value. This is where I'm not adding value. In the divorce world, what's really interesting is a lot of the concepts are financial, but financial planning doesn't necessarily add huge amounts of value. Specifically, where we are talking about smaller net worth scenarios where paying for financial advice doesn't change the outcome for them. So I started to realize I'm not adding as much value to these clients as I am to the wealthier clients, where I can truly use my cash flow forecasting. I can help them with visualization. I can create the knowledge that they need because their scenarios are complex, and actually add in that financial advice side of things. Plus, on a personal level, you know, going back to that ikigai stuff, I wasn't loving working with clients where I felt, God, there's just no solution. You know, they're divorcing, there's not enough money to go around. This is like personally impacting me. I feel really uncomfortable that I can't solve and have great solutions. So I started to move the bar, started to communicate in my social networks around who it is that I'm working with, gently moving that bar, specifically moving it where there was a power dynamic, and talking about clients who were divorcing at that point, wealthy and powerful men. That's what it used to say on LinkedIn. I give advice to women divorcing wealthy and powerful men. And it was really, really interesting, the kind of eyes on that, the conversations that came off the back of that LinkedIn profile. And that evolved over a period of time. I had a lot of clients coming through, and it got to the point where every time I picked up the phone, I pretty much knew what my client was going to say, that she was divorcing a CEO. This was the scenario. And so I just aligned my profile then to the clients that I was working with and that were contacting me, so that when they read it, it is them, that it resonates with them really, really deeply. Now, along that journey, there's been a lot of learning as well. So alongside working with these clients from a financial planning point of view, I've gained a lot of qualifications to help with that power dynamic and to understand the depths of what's going on. So I hold financial abuse and narcissism qualifications. I also hold a qualification from Resolution, which are part of it's a community of divorce professionals, family lawyers, looking to make sure that people can divorce really amicably, or as amicably as conflict-free as possible. And I hold their accreditation, of which there's only 38 of us in the country who hold that accreditation. So it's been a journey, it's evolved. It isn't like I woke up day one and said, I'm going to actually give advice to these people, but each situation just quite gently edged me into the right direction.
I love it. That sounds amazing. So starting out divorcing as a niche, but as a whole.
Yeah,
so the
absolutely.
funnel is very wide.
Yeah, and to me, that feels like a really wide funnel, but that still actually really scares some people to just say divorce.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? It's like when people say they just want to be a financial advisor to women. And I often think, wow, that's like super niche.
Do you?
But it's not. There's no...
And it depends where you're sitting, isn't it? Because somebody says that to me and I'm like, that's half the population.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Right, great. So let's just kind of, you progressively moved your way up, let's say, the economic ladder when it came to clients, right? Yeah. Or the net worth ladder, or the potential net worth ladder. Uh-huh. Yeah. When you were talking to me on the Zoom call recently, you talked about Dan Priestley.
I did.
And the impact that going through his coaching and his training had on you actually hanging your hat on the niche that you've actually gone for. Can you sort of give us a bit of an overview of that and how it impacted and what part of Dan Priestley's work has actually influenced you in your journey?
Yeah, so I came across him really early on in my journey. So I mentioned that I started the business kind of October 19, January 2020, is properly launching, and I joined Dan Priestley's course, and he runs a number, and the one that I joined was called Chaos, which is concept, audience, offer and sales. And the whole idea being around knowing what your clients need so that you can present it into a way for them to easily be able to find you and then work with you. That's the essence of what we were doing. So I did that course for a year. I then did his KPI course the following year. And now I'm currently in his alumni. I had a gap of a year, but now I'm in his alumni course as well. It's been a huge influence because what it has allowed me to do is interact with, create communities with, and be inspired by people outside of the financial planning world. And I think that's absolutely vital when you're starting a business. And I think a financial planning business needs to have inspiration outside of just financial planning. So it had that huge impact from that perspective. Now, the things that I did based on the work from Dan Priestley, but also based on some other courses I did, because that wasn't the only course that I did, based on some other courses that I did around creating my niche, really came back to understanding what I was going to be passionate about. So I described, just having that piece of paper and writing down, but there's a lot of deep work that goes into knowing the stuff that you love and that you want to do, and having a real connection. And Dan spends a lot of time getting you to really look at your past, getting you to really dig into your history and find out the elements that have happened. And he says they normally happen kind of really early on, before secondary school, that have driven your story and driven the direction that you go in. So a lot of work around gaining that picture. What is it that's happened in your past? Now, for me, I am not divorced from a CEO. We just laughed about this. I probably wouldn't be doing this if I was divorced from a multi-millionaire. But what is aligned, where the similarity comes, is this power dynamic. My clients are in situations where they are exiting spaces where they haven't felt seen, they haven't felt heard, that they felt very much that he is holding all of the cards. And a lot of women listening to this podcast will relate to how that can feel in life in general as a woman, feeling that you are surrounded by really articulate, really successful, really direct men who just get it, who are able to position what they want and why they want it and have these really successful careers. And as women, and me specifically, I often felt like I was faking it to be in the same space as them. It was an energy I was having to bring to the table. My perspective was it was a man's world, and I was really trying to adapt and get into that space. So there's this real alignment between what clients have experienced and what I've experienced. And finding that depth is then what drives the passion, because when I'm meeting with my clients, what we're specifically talking about is creating a space where you can be truly who you want to be. So it might be divorce, but there's so much more that goes on behind the scenes.
I love that. Getting to know yourself better allows you to be better at sitting down with a client and digging deeper around some of the things that might be troubling them in their relationships or their vision of the future and what that might look like. So identifying those fears and helping them to kind of bring them to the surface and be honest with you so you can provide a deeper level of service when it comes to the long-term financial planning. Can I just ask you some questions around some of the specialisms then? Because you're super passionate about this niche. And I think that's hugely important, to be super passionate and interested in a subject matter and then attaching financial planning to it.
I think that's the key. I think that's the magic to start with. When you are passionate and you are on a mission, it changes the direction of what happens. So when I show up on social media, I am not showing up because I want to find a client. I'm showing up because I have a story and I have a message and I want to influence and help other people see what is actually happening in their divorce, what is happening with the finances. I've got more of a picture that I want to actually paint than just I want to get a client. And so one of the other courses that I did that I would highly recommend actually was from a lady called Lisa Barry. She runs a course called Mission-Led Content. And it is about truly knowing what that passion is and then being able to write from a place where you are on a mission and you're clear about the change that you want to see.
So what is your mission?
I said it at the beginning, it's to remove the financial vulnerability and disadvantage that women divorcing wealthy and powerful men face. And the vision, because there's two different things. Mission is like what I'm doing here in the now. The vision is a future where it's easy and attractive for women to be money savvy, because I don't think that's the case right now. I think we're making it easier for women to be money savvy, but we're not quite nailing the attractive bit, because it's not about just painting something pink and giving it a nice font.
Do you think men talk about money more together than women talk about money together?
I don't know. I don't know, because I don't sit with men talking about money. I don't think any of us talk about money enough. You know, do you know what your best friend earns?
My best friend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't think there's many people who could literally say, okay, that's what my friends earn. This is how much their mortgage is, what debt they've got.
I think men talk about money and earning more than women do. But I think women talk about their emotions more, and are more vulnerable around their emotions than men are.
Oh, I'm really interested in that, because it is literally a conversation. Even with this knowing that I have, I still don't have those conversations around a table with my best friends about how much they're earning, etc. I don't think in any of my social groups talking about what we earn is really particularly common. And I didn't realize that was a male-female thing. So that's quite interesting.
I think I read it quite recently. Men are more inclined to be opening up to each other, to men, to talk about money and sitting down.
That's a really good thing.
And again, it's kind of like I think there might be a bit of male bravado in it as well. Like, I know my investments are doing this, that, and the other, and I've got this, and this is how much I'm earning, and this is what I'm going for when it comes to my career, because it's going to take me here. There's a bit of a competitive bravado, I think, around it, and such an ego, a competitiveness. But perhaps also minimizing other issues that they might have in their life and using money as an example of success and power and whatnot. Whereas
that resonates.
Emotionally, perhaps being less aware, whereas women tend to be more emotionally connected and more aware of how they're feeling. And that's where the kind of divide tends to be.
Hugely so. And I do think that we could both learn from each other. It'd be massively useful for women to more about money, to actually have conversations about where are we investing, how are we investing, who's helping you do that, where do those conversations actually start? And if we're not having them, that's what can lead to people feeling particularly isolated when they separate, because one person has been having those conversations and the other one hasn't. And so there's suddenly a lot of catch up, and vice versa. Like I imagine there's a big space for actually creating that more emotional tie to money. Money ultimately is just the tool to get to a set of outcomes. And when we focus too much on the tools rather than what is the life that truly we want to create, getting back to the nuts and bolts of the fact that we actually are more inclined to focus on the hows rather than the whys. And it's the whys, that's where the magic is.
You are focused on a micro niche.
I am.
That would scare a lot of people.
Yeah.
You have admitted that you don't come from a wealthy background.
No.
You haven't divorced a multi-millionaire CEO, unfortunately. Yeah. So there we go. So not only have you had to step into a world that perhaps you don't quite know because you haven't lived it, you're also choosing a very narrow niche, aren't you?
Yeah.
So where did that confidence come from?
So I have always been a risk taker. I think the greatest entrepreneurs are risk takers, and you only ever get amazing outcomes if you're brave. So absolutely being brave is part of that. I want to just talk a little bit more one of the reasons that I came on this podcast, Sam, is because I did want to share this story. Mm-hmm. I am a really ordinary girl living in a cottage in Wales, nothing extraordinary about my background at all. I might not sound Welsh, that's just because my dad was in the army. I'm not from a wealthy background. I'm not privately school educated. I'm just a really normal state school girl. And I work with some of the wealthiest women in the UK who are divorcing. Genuinely the wealthiest women in the UK who are divorcing, based in London, based in the Southeast. And I wanted to share how that has come about, because I think exactly as you described it, for a lot of people, it would feel like, well, that's an impossibility. And it absolutely isn't, because when you create and when you are completely aware of what your audience and your client needs, and you provide it, and you get the specialism and you get the depth and you make people aware of what you're doing, anything is possible. I think being micro niche is magic. I know it scares a lot of people. It is absolutely the thing that gets me noticed. It's the thing that gets me on people's radar. It's the thing that resonates and actually remains with people when I leave the room. I still get calls from people who I have met at a networking meeting, which I used to do. I don't network anymore, by the way, and that'd be worth talking about. But I used to network. I used to go and meet lots of lovely people in a room. My networking is so evolved from that, and that we'll come back to that. But I used to go network, and I will get a call from somebody that I was doing that with 4 years ago. I cannot not only remember them, I can't remember the meeting, I can't remember the scenario, but they have remembered me so well that they have referred a client to me 4 years later. That's micro niche. That's because when they meet somebody and they said, oh yeah, I'm getting divorced, and they're like, who's divorcing a CEO? I know who you need to speak to. And it's just there. And that's the power. It's being memorable and specific. Along with that power, then you also have to be able to back up what you're doing, seriously back up what you're doing. I have a level of qualification that is unmatched. There's 38 of us in the UK who hold this divorce specialist qualification. But in addition to that, the financial abuse, the narcissism qualifications, I'm also a real expert in how these CEOs earn. LTIPs are complex, private equity is complex. Understanding that and being able to describe it not only to my client, but to their solicitors is really, really important. So there is risk, but it's controlled risk. It's considered risk. And I think it's a bigger risk to be a generalist and just hope. Hope that you stumble across some clients. Hope that you create a business that you like. Hope that you enjoy working with the clients that walk through your door.
So it's a specialism, isn't it? And it's enjoying the topic that you have chosen to invest your time, energy into, and the problems that you're looking to solve. I love the fact that you also understand how these CEOs are remunerated.
Yeah, it's a massive part of what I do.
Yeah, so really digging deep, because then you understand fully what, say, the wife might not know. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing they don't really have a clue about that type of thing.
Yeah. So the women that I work with are very highly educated. They are normally university educated. They had careers, but they've had this journey of being an expat typically, because to get to a CEO position, you normally do travel internationally.
Right.
And so she's given up her career and she's traveled with him. So they are bright, bright women. The reason that they don't know how he earns isn't because they're not bright enough. It's because they've not been exposed to it, because they have had a trusting relationship. He's gone off and done his thing. She's not needed to learn. And at the point where she needs to learn, the relationship has broken down and the transparency isn't there and the fear kicks in. And she really just needs somebody at a point where she's feeling quite ashamed of the fact that she's maybe dropped the ball here and she didn't keep up with her finances, somebody to actually bring her back up to speed really quickly. And that's what I do. Literally just make sure that she's like, okay, I've got this. I'm back on board.
Can you just tell us a little bit about the journey then? So if you're sitting down with a client who's the courage to pick the phone up to you and speak to you because perhaps they've been referred by somebody or seen your great content that's out there or heard from you from a 4-year ago networking event, you sit down with them to the point of where you invest money. Mm-hmm. How long does that take?
Years. Absolute years. So I work with my clients typically for 2 years before the point of investment. It's probably the most enjoyable 2 years of all the time that I work with clients because I am truly adding value. I had this perception before I started the business that I never wanted to be sitting across from a businessman saying, sell it to me. I didn't want to be part of a beauty parade. I wanted to be wanted and needed by my clients. That's a personal thing for me, knowing that that client is actually taking huge value from what I'm doing. So that 2-year period is really important to me. That's the period where I'm just like, I'm showing up and giving in droves, and she's really gaining a lot from what I'm doing. There's a specific 4-stage methodology that I developed as part of the course that I went through with Dan Priestley, the initial one. So that 4-step methodology is called WISE, and I cover that through the 2-year period. So WISE tells... Let me start again. WISE stands for wellness, intent, stress test, and evolve. So wellness is all about making sure she's feeling financially literate, confident, and clear, that she's on a level playing field financially. Intent is where we explore how much does she actually need to have the life that she desires. So we explore, it's a lot like coaching. What does a full and beautiful life look like? And then we cost it. And I cost it at a level that many financial planners don't. I'm looking between now and age 100, how much her costs are now when the children leave home, early retirement and late retirement, really analysing what that could look like, incomes and outgoings. And we'll get essentially to a place where we know what lump sum or monthly figure she needs to be able to maintain their lifestyle. Stress test is when there are offers being made through the divorce and we are using cash flow forecasting to see how they work. Are there gaps? How could we fill them? How could we be creative? And then the last stage is evolve. And this is about making sure that she is able and ready to make the financial decisions that she's going to need to when she receives a lump sum. How do investments produce income? What are her investment options? What is attitude to risk? What is capacity for loss? Teaching her all of that stuff that she hasn't had along her journey so that she's in a place of really being able to make the decisions she needs to. And at that point, she normally gets a financial settlement and we move forward with what would be a more typical financial planning relationship. I'll do a presentation meeting, we'll make the investments, we'll start doing our annual reviews, and it will kind of mirror a more normal practice.
It is really like a beautiful coaching journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
On an emotional, life-changing journey. My brother's going through a divorce at the moment. I told you about that. And it is a journey. It's a really up and down journey. And he's not got anybody that's going along with him apart from me, really.
Yeah.
I'm there with him on the journey. I like that. It's meaningful.
It's meaningful. That's a brilliant word. Yeah. And when you show up and you are doing something that is meaningful, it gives you passion, it gives you direction, and that comes across to clients. And that is self-perpetuating. That actually then feeds into the energy of having more clients approach you and kind of that ball rolling.
It's the uncover, discover, build trust.
Yeah.
You can understand why if someone's going to go through probably one of the most traumatic and stressful life changes, that the person that goes along with them and coaches them and helps them uncover and discover and come out the other side in the best position they possibly can be, they're only ever going to refer you. You're only ever going to be in their telephone book or recommendations of somebody who's held their hand during a period which has been the toughest of their life, right?
And the referrals that you get they just blow your mind. And again, it gives you more sense of purpose. You know, when I read what my clients say when they refer me, it makes my heart sing. I'm like, this is why I do it. This is the purpose behind what I do, because I know I have that much of an impact on the clients that I work with.
Dan Priestley, Key Person of Influence, was a book that I read, and it helped me with my journey about being a key person of influence within the financial planning profession as the talent attraction specialist.
Yeah.
So I created a persona and a solution to a problem that was affecting everybody, which was the advice gap. And then positioned myself as the person who can solve the advice gap by interviewing wonderful people like you about careers to attract more people. And therefore I became the known person when it came to talent attraction. I wasn't a demon recruiter.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a nice way to do it. I love that. So key person of influence, did that... so let's look at one of the biggest struggles a lot of the financial planners out there have. Not only are they kind of here, there and everywhere, not quite hanging their hat on something that defines them as a solution to a problem, but they are struggling with marketing themselves to get in front of clients to win those client relationships over. Now, you alluded to the fact that you did go around networking events, not so much now. Key person of influence, I can imagine, probably took a role in how you marketed yourself. Could you give us and our listeners a bit of an overview then of where you are now, how you generate clients, but what that kind of journey has been like to support a micro niche service like yours?
Yeah, this is something I really want to talk about because I think it is something that you can replicate and is easy to actually do. I started this business and had a perception of what marketing looked like. I was really nervous because I'm an introvert. I'm not the type of person who comfortably goes networking. At the time, my little boy was 7, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to kind of go out to all of these networking events in the evening. You know, based in Wales, wasn't going to be kind of in the hub of things. So I had all of these reasons why what I thought typical financial advisors do was going to be really, really tricky for me. And I wanted to find a different way. I knew that there were other advisors. Previous to starting Willowbrook, I was a coach and mentor for advisors at SJP. So I was a partnership development manager. So I was seeing other advisors coming through, doing things in new ways, doing things innovatively. And I got introduced then by a colleague to Key Person of Influence and read the book, same as you, and was like, okay, yeah, this guy is speaking to me. I can see how I can, with authenticity, show up in those ways and actually feel really comfortable. And I think that's the key. When you find an environment where you are really comfortable, you can promote it and you can push it. So for a lot of advisors, those networking events absolutely work because it is their comfort zone and they are really good at it. And they love going out and having drinks, which sounds like hell to me. But it is absolutely a brilliant way to grow a business. But what I wanted to share is that there is other ways of growing business, and it's finding the ones that work for you. So the way that the Key Person of Influence kind of positions itself is exactly as you say, creating enough depth and knowledge and specialism that what you are doing makes you stand out. And then using different platforms to make sure that people know you're there and that they are aware of you. So that does look like me using social media. We talked previous to this about how I use LinkedIn. And I use LinkedIn extensively. It's a place where my network is. You know, I'm not out having drinks, but I know so many legal professionals, truly know them. And they're really similar to me. They don't want to be out having drinks. So you'll find your people, the people who also enjoy those environments. So using LinkedIn, using Instagram, typical social media stuff. But there are layers beyond that are really important. And ultimately, it's about becoming Googleable. The way that... Did you have a question, Sam? No. The way that most clients would actually find me is through a referral from their solicitor. And a solicitor will tend to give 3 names. That's how they work. In fact, that's how I work. If a client needs a solicitor, I will kind of shortlist 3 that I think are going to work, but let the client ultimately make the decision. And I think that's pretty much how legal professionals work on the whole. And so when that client has those 3 names, the first thing they're going to do is put you in Google. And they're going, okay, Who's this person? Now they put my name in Google and everything that comes up is divorce, divorce, divorce. They can see my specialism immediately. They can see that I know that I'm what I'm talking about. So that looks like me going on podcasts. You know, I've come here because I've got a message to share and I'm really passionate about helping advisors become really good at this. But also for my own business, it's another market point for my clients to actually access me and actually see, okay, who is she? What's she about? So you're going to appear on my Google list. It's about writing blogs for different companies, but then it's also about raising your profile. So I have won a number of awards and I'm not the typical person who would normally have applied for those. And it again has been a journey. So it started with the Women in Finance Awards and I won Financial Advisor of the Year for Wales, which was just like the biggest thing that ever happened to me at that point. I'd been running the business about 2 years. It was new and, you know, it was COVID and I had kind of all this recognition. So it feels amazing, but it wouldn't have been something I'd automatically have done. And I did it because it produces credibility. It makes me more referable by solicitors. And I've won a number of awards since. The last one being, I just won Spears Wealth Management Private Client Innovation Award in 2023. Now, to me, that blows my mind. You know, Spears Wealth Management recognised my wise methodology and the work that I have done to create this niche. That is, you know, people in my category were like JP Morgan and HSBC. And I'm just a girl sitting in a cottage in Wales. And so that's kind of like, that was in October. So that's at the end of 4 years of really raising my profile, being on podcasts, writing blogs, using social media, getting other awards, being really prolific and taking lots of action.
Lovely. I love that. Time and energy being put into content creation, but with a thought around evergreen content as well.
Starting. So interestingly, that isn't what I used to do, but starting to think about evergreen content. There was a really interesting journey here. So how I used to write content. So going back to mission-led content with Lisa Barry, she teaches you how to get your message across and how to talk really passionately about your story. And the way that I specifically used to work is I would wake up and I would say, okay, what does my client need to know today? And I would spend the first 10 minutes of every day, okay, this is what I'm going to tell her. I would literally just write onto LinkedIn every day. So it wasn't a huge amount of work. It was 10 minutes every day onto LinkedIn. That's what I did for a number of years. And then as things have evolved, I've had different social media managers involved, some people writing content for me. Sometimes I write content all in a day. It kind of changes, but it doesn't need to be complex. You can just literally take those actions and be visible. But from evergreen, all those podcasts and blogs, but also I started a YouTube channel and that YouTube channel did a couple of things. Firstly, it created evergreen content, but secondly, allowed me to have conversations with really interesting people. And that was, pivotal.
That's how I sell podcasts into financial planning companies.
Yeah.
So one of the things we're doing here at the Financial Planner Life now is trying to convince financial planning companies to use podcasts as a means to having really interesting conversations with influential people who can pass you business.
Exactly.
It's a door knocker. It's a door smasher. It'll get you through the door. Hey, do you want to come on my podcast? This is my area of specialism. You've got this. I'd love to talk to you. And most people will be like, yeah, damn straight. I'd talk about my life. It's pretty good. It's my business, my expertise, what I'm doing. Yeah. They want to share what it is you're doing. And especially if you then turn around and say, like, I get this many views or, these types of people in my audience, so they're going to get to see you. You're going to benefit as much as I can. And as you say, when you sit across the table from somebody, when you jump on a pre-podcast call with them, each time you see them, you get a deeper relationship with them. Yeah. So by the end of 1 touch point, 2 touch point, 3 touch point, 4 touch point when you release it, 5 when you do something, all of a sudden you know that person.
Exactly.
And you know you can pick the phone up to them, you've had an intimate conversation with them and you know they're going to pass and refer business onto you. Yeah. And I think that's one of the areas where financial planners need to wake up a little bit.
It's such an opportunity.
It's a huge opportunity. It's a great opportunity. And not only that, we touched on, it's evergreen. So when it's out there, it's constantly being listened to. I look at my stats, it's like thousands of hours a month I'm in somebody's ear. Yeah. Thousands of hours. So when I'm sleeping away, someone's having a little listen to Sam Oakes. I had 2 people out there recognise me in the hallway today. It makes me laugh. It's
living the dream.
It's good quality content that gets listened to and gets you recognised and builds that profile, especially when you've got a specific little niche like you have. Can I ask you some questions about LinkedIn? And I want to
Yeah.
ask some questions about your ability to generate clients through introducers, traditional, what we call
Yeah.
introducers. Okay, you might want to call them partners. I don't know what you call them. I think we could change the name of introducers.
Professional connections.
Yeah. You mentioned that you're not a natural extrovert. You would put content out on LinkedIn, which sounds more text-based content, unless you were sharing like your podcast or, yeah. So you surround yourself on LinkedIn. You consider it a network
Yes,
of human beings, right?
I do.
And you surround yourself with the human beings that will bring you into an environment that will refer or introduce the target client that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So your audience essentially are solicitors.
Absolutely. And I think taking it back to kind of a more simple place, because I am still uncomfortable with it seeming like a sales technique or a sales method. That doesn't resonate with me.
Right.
So when I think about my network, it's the group of people that serve the same clients as me.
Yeah.
You know, who else can I partner with that can also support and is also interested in what my clients need and want? And that, I think that energy is really important. Like if you're approaching it from a perspective of, I can educate those solicitors, they can educate me, I can give them clients, they can give clients to me, fine. It's a really different energy than actually how do I create a network of people that I can ask to introduce to me. That feels really icky.
This is good. I think we need to kind of explore this because I think lots of people don't use LinkedIn correctly. Mm-hmm. So one is that, you know, you don't surround yourself with, you don't go on LinkedIn and connect with 7,000 financial advisors. No. Because what's the point of that?
So this is a really important point. When I started, I deleted all the financial advisors I was connected to. I think that's really important. I was really scared for them to hear my voice. Now I let them connect with me now. I never used to for years. But I think you need to create a space that you feel really safe to use your voice. And if you are connected to loads of other financial planners, you might not feel safe to do that because you might feel really judged for doing something different. One of the things that I did when I started, and we are going off down a tangent here, but it is a really important one. I hid from the financial planning world for around 2 years. Like I literally didn't attend any conferences with financial planning, no training. I didn't come into SJP for anything because I was finding my path. I was finding my voice. I was finding my vision. And it wasn't concrete. It wasn't cement. And I was really scared of being knocked off that path by other people's strong opinions. I surrounded myself with entrepreneurs who were doing new and exciting and inventive things, who were using podcasts, who were using LinkedIn in this way. And I think that's really important. Surround yourself by people doing the things that you want to do rather than people who've always done things how they were. So going back to LinkedIn, create a space where not only are you connected to your partners, you know, people who also work with your clients, but also people who inspire and who push you and kind of, it is your network. And if you are seeing people show up on there in ways that you want to show up, you're more likely to do it.
So the content you create on LinkedIn and put out, you are writing it in the way that your preferred target client.
I do.
But for the benefit of the, say, legal professional seeing your value and knowledge in what you know, therefore they think, well, that's the type of thing that I talk about or need to understand to be able to deliver a high level of service to my client during their divorce. And therefore they see you as a value add and a reason to connect because you are going to improve the chances of them securing clients, retaining clients, becoming an expert in the divorce sector. Yeah. Because as you kind of educated me on the Zoom call we had, there's lots of different people in the divorce space.
Yeah.
So when we talk about niching again, I think solicitor, niche, you know, that's it. All you're doing is solicitors. But there's more people all doing different little things in the space of divorce, right? Yeah. So it's actually when you scratch the surface and you get a bit deeper, it's like going under the microscope, isn't it? You look at the microscope, you think you can only see 10 things. You go a bit deeper and there's billions.
I think when you scratch it enough, you get to the point where you then realize where the community is. There is genuinely a group of us who all know each other, know of each other, and are really, really connected in the LinkedIn space. So if I want to go on LinkedIn and create some noise and actually have some really deep conversations, I can pretty much guarantee the people who are going to comment on my stuff, and they're the really active people on LinkedIn. And we're like a little group who all know each other. So you're not only just kind of finding the wider spider web of, it's divorce coach and it's lawyer and it's actuary and it's the accountant. It's not just looking at that, but it's, these are the ones who are engaged on LinkedIn. And actually, because that's the place that I'm active and that's the place that they're active, we're a good community to work together. Now, I've no doubt that there is a whole load of solicitors and coaches and accountants that I don't know because they don't use LinkedIn. That's not my problem. They're the ones who are going out having drinks with Barry, the financial advisor. That's his field.
It's funny because I've spoken to financial advisors who are uber successful and they're not on LinkedIn.
Interesting.
So it's not like the be all and end all of life, but where you hang out.
But it's finding the thing that you are really good at and doing it really well.
I love making content. I like trying to inspire lots of people.
Yeah.
I don't like going to networking events. It's not my cup of tea. And people kind of find that a bit odd. They think I'm quite extrovert. I'm quite an extrovert introvert. I like the idea of, I love talking to people one-on-one. I'm intrigued and interested from a place where I know that I could educate 1,000 people tomorrow about your conversation if I ask the right questions on their behalf.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that.
Yeah.
I enjoy being the person who asks the questions on behalf of the person that doesn't know.
I like that.
Yeah. And I like that. And that's how I can be of service.
Yeah.
And if I can inspire 1,000 people by talking to you, then how many of those are going to join the profession or take a chance on establishing a niche or moving forward with their career and getting out of a shit place in their life, for instance.
Yeah, or get recommitted and repassionate about what they're doing, something that feels stale and difficult because they think they have to go to the networking, suddenly seeing a different path and the huge amount of success that you can get out of it. Now, it does cross over into the real world. So I don't do typical networking events anymore. I think you need to surround yourself, as I said, with the people that you actually are inspired by and who motivate you and kind of a step ahead of where you are. Going to a local networking event is going to get me clients who are small business owners, and that isn't who I work with. So where I network now is a much higher scale. So I go to a lot of the Spears events. At the Wealth Management Awards recently, so that's a room of the highest net worth advisors, ultra high net worth advisors. And it was the awards and it was all really busy, loads of stuff going on. And I walked into that room and I stopped, I talked to person after person after person who I knew. And it really was a wake up call for me because I was like, I don't live in London. I am not a part of the social elite. Yeah, I know so many people in this room, so much so that my SJP colleagues were there and I didn't even get to see them because I didn't get to them because through the walking through the room, I just had to keep stopping this solicitor, that divorce coach. It was just a room full of people that I knew. Now, that's from LinkedIn.
Do you find that you get approached directly on LinkedIn by people that tend to be what I would consider watchers? So those that are on LinkedIn but don't engage.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I do get that. I think because of what I do specifically. So we haven't touched on this, but I do get clients from LinkedIn. Clients directly contact me on LinkedIn. Clients contact me directly on Instagram. And they might never have engaged with my content, liked anything, because they're not letting the outside world know that they're going through divorce. So yeah, I get lots of watchers. There
was a poll put out quite recently from a chap called Rob Atherton. He's quite
yes,
vocal.
I know Rob.
Oh, yeah, you know Rob. So he put a bet on with me. And I said we talked about LinkedIn, how many financial advisors are generating business on LinkedIn. And I said, I reckon 75% of them generate nothing, whereas he said 100%. Because I reckon 100% generate nothing on LinkedIn, and I said 75%. Came in at 76% of advisors that are using LinkedIn aren't even generating any business. And I think I got near that figure in saying, if there was some training and development for you to generate business on LinkedIn, would you take it? And about 70% said yes.
Yeah.
So there's a desire and an appetite to want to be able to use LinkedIn properly. But I think people get confused by LinkedIn. They kind of almost treat it like Facebook or Instagram,
Yeah, I agree.
where they connect with their peers.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think there's this kind of echo chamber of just advisors chatting about advice on each other's posts. And no one, like if you're going to go on there, you need to do what you do, which is pick your audience. My audience are financial planners, of course. Or those that want to become financial planners or administrators or power planners, not recruitment consultants. Yeah. I don't have any recruitment consultants connected to me. I don't, because I don't want them, I don't want them seeing my content and whatnot, The only people I do is recruiters in the financial planning space, because their network of financial planners.
Yeah. So I've moved beyond that. I said I didn't have financial planners in my network because I didn't want to be seen and it was nerve-wracking. But now I have them there because I want to inspire them.
Yeah,
one of the big things that also comes from LinkedIn is financial planners contacting me saying, oh my God, wow, how have you done this? Can I speak to you? And I think that's a really important conversation to be having for all the reasons that you do this podcast. It's also as financial planners, kind of motivating and inspiring that generation by them seeing what we're doing. So I do let them know.
Yeah, but I think that's part of your journey.
Mm-hmm.
I think you don't put that energy and effort into being coached and mentored and trained through your Dan Priestleys, etc., to keep that information.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we learn something to inspire and teach others further down the line.
Yeah.
It becomes part of our innate human nature to want to help. You have that anyway with wanting to help your clients on a much deeper level and on a much more emotionally connected level, because you see the benefit of taking somebody through a period of time which is difficult to overcome. I went on a 12-step process for my drinking years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is in the 12 steps is you have to take somebody else through the 12 steps.
Ah.
So when I took them through the 12 steps, it was like doing the steps again.
Yeah,
As I took them through the steps again, I learned a completely different way of doing it.
So I have a number of kind of colleagues, like people that are running their own business, but I have a good connection with, and we interact and, we kind of bounce off ideas. And absolutely, I teach them this stuff, and they teach me their stuff, and we're kind of constantly kind of evolving. And when I am with people, I find it really hard when they ask me about a niche, I find it really hard not to find theirs.
It's a game.
They'll say, well, how will I find a niche? And I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's dig into what you're good at. Dig into your background and kind of find things. And there's so many niches. I think people think that I've picked the niche and that's it. There's nothing else left. And actually, we talked about this, where are the financial planners for soap opera singers? Or soap opera
singers would be
amazing. Opera singers would be one, but soap opera, actors. Where's the financial planners for them? Imagine how amazing that would be. There's all these niches that you could go and create real amount of noise and interest and deep specialism. I can imagine if you were working in a soap. Why do I want to call it a soap opera? It is a soap opera.
It's a soap opera.
It is a soap opera.
Just not singers, unless you're neighbours, isn't it?
Yeah. So imagine if you're working in that environment and you've got a certain set of difficulties, a certain routine. The exposure that you're getting is creating its own set of complications. And if you knew that inside out and you could mirror it back to them, you're going to become the advisor of choice.
So I love that. And I think it's something that should be talked about at the St. James's Place Academy, because we just went to a room of people a second ago. And in there was a guy who captained yachts. And then there was a chap who was a pilot.
Yeah.
So you've got all these different people coming into the St. James's Place Academy from all different walks of life and all that level of experience.
Yeah.
Why not hang your hat on the niche that you're in? And because you understand what the troubles and problems and what life looks like for those types of individuals, there's a company like Wesleyan, isn't there, that look at teachers and lawyers and doctors, and they've niched down it and made a business out of it. So every single advisor really could take a look at the bits take a look at their lives. What have they learned about their lives? And also, what I also liked about what you said is when we go in, we start to look at our intrinsic values, don't we? Mm-hmm. Things that we care about, things that matter to us. And then if you are unearthing those and then again aligning them to your specialism and your niche and that you understand and you're passionate about, it's just happy days, isn't it? Life becomes a lot easier. You don't have to be fighting for something because you know it or you want to know more about that subject matter. Unless you've got anything to say on that?
Just spot on. It doesn't become work. You know, I show up because I'm interested and I'm passionate. I want to help these people, but I am learning because I want to know the next thing and the next thing because it's coming up from my clients. So it just naturally evolves in a way that is just not work. Life just becomes absolutely a dream, and it's not difficult. When you show up with that energy, clients are just attracted to you. And I think I said to you this on the call, I have more clients than I can work with. Clients find me through Instagram, through LinkedIn. I don't go and find clients. There's no part of me that at any point, at any time thinks, oh, where's my next client coming from? The clients find me. And that's utopia, when you as an advisor can be attracting the clients that you love working with. And that's all you do every day. There's nothing that needs to change.
We're going to bottle this up and sell it. You and me.
Let's do it.
There are a couple of things I just want you to just go into a bit of detail about because A, I'm interested, and B, I think it will inspire individuals to perhaps seek a specialism and do some study around it.
Yeah.
You talked about narcissism.
Yeah.
And a narcissism qualification, and you talk about financial economic abuse.
Yes.
Can you just give our listeners a bit of an overview of what they are, but also how they are important for you to understand in your specialist niche with your clients?
Yeah. So my clients are not necessarily divorcing a narcissist. They may not have ever even heard of that word, but there's a definite power dynamic. There's a definite strategy and awareness that is needed so that you don't inadvertently take actions that could create outcomes you don't want. So a big part of understanding narcissism is knowing how people are thinking so that you can know how not to trigger them. Now, your client, I'm talking as if you're working with this. My client is an expert herself in her own partner's narcissism. They might not use that word, but they know all the things that trigger. And so creating a space where you have the specialism to have the same conversation, let them know that you understand narcissism, let them know that you've done all the work around it so that when they talk about their triggers, it's really clear about how you're going to take the next steps, that they feel heard and they feel seen, and that's really clear about how you're going to take next steps. So some specific examples of how that shows up. If you are working with somebody whose ex has had a history of coercive control, if there's been a power dynamic in which she hasn't had her voice heard, and you put them in a mediation situation, the dynamic is such that she's unlikely to end up with a result that reflects what she needs. And it can easily be resolved by having other people in the room. And that isn't me, actually. I'm never in the room. But having her solicitor there, having a financial neutral there, that's another role that's really useful. And actually creating that third party. One of the really interesting things about narcissism is if you can convince the other person it's their idea, then they normally run with it. And if you can convince the other person that they're going to, with this certain types of narcissists, which most of my clients are divorcing, if you can make it seem that they are the knight on the horse and they are the one who's actually saving and is the savior, and kind of how brilliant they're looking after this person through the divorce, and how they might be perceived, you can get certain outcomes. So the narcissism qualification has allowed me to understand the strategy that might be useful and then have strategic conversations with my client and with their lawyer. Financial abuse qualifications is about helping my client recognize where things might have gone wrong. You know, they're really subtle things that can happen during relationships. And actually, there is a point at which it's really normal for you to not know about the finances, because one of you is just, you're a busy family, you've got all these plates that you're spinning, and one of you is managing the finances, the other one is managing the children, and things are really healthy and there's not an issue. But there's a point at which it switches and it becomes more around control, and understanding what that that switch looks like. Specific things that might happen around, I had one client whose husband would hide the keys, so she couldn't find the keys and she'd be late to work. And it always resulted in her having kind of really difficult conversations in work and losing jobs, etc. And she just thought she was going mad. Like, she just thought constantly, like, I never can do this. And I'm always, but it's economic control. Like, he was the one wanting to earn the money if he can reduce her ability to earn money. So it's about understanding, those qualifications have increased my depth of understanding. And it's just interesting. Like, it's fascinating stuff. It's not like sitting down doing a trust module,
Yeah, very interesting. So that gave you a further deeper understanding of humans.
Yes.
Also gave you an ability to signpost people to probably the help that they actually need. Because although you hold a qualification in financial abuse, it doesn't mean that you're a counsellor or something along those lines, right?
Not at all.
So it gives you the opportunity to signpost them to the right help. And I guess as well, if financial planners are listening to this and they're used to sitting down with couples, it also gives you an opportunity to recognise if financial abuse perhaps is taking place, or if there is a narcissist in the relationship, or because you can see two people sat in front of you and the way one person might be dominating the conversation, or the fact that that person might not know something about one area, you can kind of probe and ask questions and even potentially recognize an opportunity to help somebody by having a private conversation with them about something that they should know. My mum and dad went into the bank, and my dad's quite a controlling type individual, quite dominant type guy. Anyway, the bank, they were talking about the banking and everything. My dad jumped over my mum and started speaking to this, I wasn't there, by the way, my mum told me. Spoke over her, spoke to the bank, and he turned around and said, "Excuse me, I'm talking to Mrs. Oakes. This is about hers, not yours. So if you could step away." My mum was like, "Bloody hell," Christ. And my dad was like, "Jesus." Off he went. But that's a prime example how it is being brought in in the banking, in the financial services, that it is a thing, that people need to recognize the fact that you're speaking for yourself because it's your money.
Yeah. One of the things that I still see time and time again are clients who have pensions, who have ISAs, who have a whole load of financial products. And I will say, okay, what's your relationship with this financial advisor? This is early days and I'm trying to work out, have they got a relationship with another financial advisor? Where do I step in? How does this look? And they'll say, I've never met them. How can you never have met this person? You've got an ISA. How can you never met this person? You've got a pension. I've signed the forms. And they have a zero relationship. That is a huge risk on so many levels from consumer duty perspective. But also, like, as a business person, you only know 50% of your clients. It's a huge risk to you if your client divorces, because they're taking 50% away. And if you have no moral obligation, you should have a financial perspective on what's going on here, because there are still far too many advisors who advise the husband, and the wife is either there, not there, or there as a token. In an ideal world, I think all couples should be also expected to have a separate financial review with their advisor so that you can identify financial abuse. Now, the practicalities of that are tough because so many advisors have so many large volumes of clients. That would be what good look like to me, is that you actually get to a place where those risks are eliminated because you do sit down with somebody and say, okay, what's your understanding of what's going on here? What have you got? Like, I sit with clients, they have literally no idea what they've got. And there's a form that you have to complete through divorce that lists all of your assets, and they fill in what they know and then have to ask their ex. And it's outrageous.
Just out of interest, do you know any stats around this? But do more women divorce multi-millionaire CEOs than men who are multi-millionaire CEOs divorce women?
I don't know.
No.
I don't know where I find it out either.
It's not like, yeah.
Yeah.
Just interested.
So are my clients divorcing their ex or vice versa? It is a mix. There is a real mix, because with narcissism, you get to a point of power at which you feel like you don't need anybody. And so they will often drop their wife because she's fulfilled her part. She's raised the children. It's typical my clients' children are kind of 18, 19, 20. they've raised the children, you've got the role that you always wanted. There are some really deviant behaviors that come with narcissism around the kind of sexual practices that they have. They're far more likely to have adultery, far more likely for the moral line to not be there. So there are a lot of my clients for whom, I would even say the vast majority, it's the ex who's brought the divorce to the table, not vice versa. And then I occasionally will have women who are the ones who have positioned it because they feel quite abandoned. And it's rare that it feels like a meeting of minds, they've decided that this is the right thing to do. That's rare. It's normally kind of a real dynamic of one of them wanting it.
And because you've got the financial abuse content, because you put content out there about that, right?
Yeah, I attract those clients for sure.
Yeah.
There's a definite, and I do say this on my social media, I am aware that I am self-perpetuating the type of clients that I get because you're going to work with me if you're seeing these things, and therefore I'm going to see more of them and talk more about them for sure. Do
you sometimes feel like some of these people are not experiencing it? Have you ever had that where you kind of...
Oh, I've had a thought of, are you the narcissist?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I have. And actually, I am really conscious of that. Could be a really dangerous space to end up in. Like a lot of financial advisors, I have this initial meeting where we're working out whether or not we would be a good fit and how that might transpire. And I have had cases where I've thought, this just isn't landing well with me. And it's normally quite easy to not present yourself as well as you should do. And therefore they don't choose to work with you. And that's what I would tend to do, is kind of not make it massively compelling if the energy doesn't feel right to me.
Is narcissism higher? Is there a higher account for narcissism in men than there is in women? Yeah. And is there a higher account for narcissism in men who are more successful than the average Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. They think it's one of the very drivers of somebody reaching those levels of success is these traits within their personality.
A bit like psychopathy as well, isn't it? They believe that that's quite a driver.
Yeah.
Interesting. You meet some interesting people. And I bet sometimes you're sitting on the other side of the table and it's an eye-opener.
It's an eye-opener. I mean, when I said about the sexual deviance, it didn't come up in my narcissism training at all. And I had client after client who would share these stories. And I got to the point I was like, there's something in there. And then I went and did some research and I was like, oh yeah, this is like a massive part of narcissism that isn't massively talked about, is that they're normally very sexually deviant. They have really different morals around it. And I have masses of clients who tell me these really deep, intimate things that are going on, that you wouldn't expect to actually come across. The other side of things that we haven't touched on actually is that, so there's trauma in the work that I'm doing with my clients. It is heavy, high emotional, heavy hitting stuff. The reason that it lands well with me, the reason that I love this and I still do it, is because after the divorce ends, that woman rebuilds, and the hope that comes from that and the journey she then goes on is so inspiring. So getting those balance of things is just such a brilliant mix. You see somebody really, really come through and out the other side. And I think it must be so hard to be a divorce lawyer because you're never getting that other side. You're never getting that like hopeful story. And these clients are with me for life in the happy period.
That's a really lovely way of putting it. Yeah, because it's not transactional at all. It's a lifelong journey.
It's a lifelong.
But you're seeing complete and utter transformation, aren't you?
Yeah.
The chrysalis to the butterfly type.
Yeah, absolutely. And a real sense of community. That's the other thing that comes from having clients who are really similar to each other. So, for example, one of my clients has an art exhibition soon and shared it amongst my group of clients because we want to be there supporting each other. They want to support somebody who is self-starting and who's having to rebuild. They want to choose services and providers that are kind of aligned to that as well. So this sense of this group of women supporting each other is something new. I ran recently a client focus group. I brought some of my clients together. I wanted to hear from them their own words of like their experiences and what worked, what hadn't. And what I hadn't anticipated is what they would gain from being brought together and how much those women just getting those chances to meet other women now on the other side, how valuable that was to them.
The community aspect of
community aspect of your
that's a great area
clients.
For you to step into.
Yeah.
Building your online community, building a community like Do you know that Leah Turner? She's like a LinkedIn trainer.
No.
So she charges £500 a year to join a community, but there's always a wait list. I mean, she's got like, I think she's closing in on like 500 people in her community, but within it are specific experts around helping new businesses start up. Mm-hmm. And then each of those specific experts deliver a presentation, for instance. And then people come in and they can lean into all the different people who are classed, I suppose, as master classes or something within the group. And then the community helps the community, creates a kind of pump group really, which is a bit obvious on social media because you can see that like 300 people like one of the new entrances, post or something along that. I said that's a bit obvious, but the concept of it all, no one's really doing it within the financial planning space. You've got like next gen planners that are geared towards really the next gen who perhaps aren't quite getting there yet. Octo members were trying to do it around the networking of, I think, what really looks like kind of established advisors, but no one's really in that sweet spot space of where you are, I think you could do that for financial planners. We talked about that. This is me pitching you an idea. But on the other side is you and your network and bringing those people into it, and how many new people could you bring into your network to inspire through that online mentorship side. It's worth you kind of looking at it because you're there anyway. It's a nice, financial planners don't create other revenue streams.
No, I what we do is complex, So a lot of what I'm doing outside of the stuff that you're seeing is really deep, complex stuff. I was saying to Geet earlier, I've got a client tomorrow. I've got 19 trust forms to complete. There's a huge amount of work that I'm actually doing in the day-to-day. So I think we often don't create other income streams because the actual financial advice part is time-consuming.
Yeah, I gotcha. Right, we're coming to the end of the podcast. I could talk to you all day long. It's really, really interesting. I've got loads of questions actually I would like to ask you, but probably not suitable for the podcast actually. Let's just leave it on a note of, if someone's sitting here right now, they're thinking about becoming a financial planner, or they're in the early stage of their career, maybe they're knocking on doors, it's not going anywhere. Let's give them a couple of examples of some niches that they could start into, or how to at least explore it.
So this is one we talked about. I think we need financial planners for WAGs. I think that would be,
I think that's a good idea.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I quite fancy that one actually. Yeah. That would be really interesting and really inspiring. So definitely financial planners for WAGs. It's what you were saying earlier though. It's going back to kind of what is it that you are passionate and focused about, and can you create a niche around that? So it could be something as simple as that you are the financial planner for XYZ company where your husband works, and everything about their pay scale and exactly when they're going to get promotions and how that's going to impact them and how they buy into being part of that company, and knowing inside out exactly what that looks like. Kind of looking at your personal network and seeing where that is. What else would be really exciting as well? I'm trying to think about ones that I would love. So I'd quite like to be a financial planner for vets. I don't know how your pet experience is, but vets just seem to be going from one network to a new network to a new network. That I feel like there's a whole business model there that needs sorting with vets.
Vets would be a really good one. No one's doing that. It's really interesting. So, because I always think about when you talk about a niche, talking about the things that vets are interested in. Animals, people love animals.
Oh, I know, I'd love that.
So day in, day out, you're taking photos of animals, you're talking about animals, you're talking about, that's a great, it's like chefs as well. So high-end chefs, like food. Instagram is full of food pictures. People love food, right? So you can entwine food into your financial planning journey and the pressures and the stress that they go under as chefs, because that's a high pressure, full on job.
Financial planners for influencers, for podcasters, because the way that you are working is not standard. Your money is coming in ways that actually does need some really good planning. And influencers and podcasts can earn mega money. So that could be a really interesting route to go down.
Streamers.
And you would learn loads from them.
Yeah.
You would be win-win because you wouldn't just be doing your stuff. You would learn off the other person.
Streamers and gamers.
Yeah.
E-gamers that make a load of money.
Yeah.
And they're some of them are 16 years old and in £1 million to be e-gamers.
Yeah.
So there's loads of areas if people thought about, hang on, that's not too bad. I think the inspiring bit about this podcast is, look, it may feel like it's a really narrow niche, but if you're interested and you're passionate about it, and you can offer a certain level of service to those individuals, which ultimately at the end of the day is financial planning. But if you get it and you understand it and you can inspire them, then why not go for something you're interested in and trying to go the same path as everybody else, where you don't quite understand the intricacies of everybody's different type of job role.
I think make it easy for yourself. So either you can go down the mass market route and have high volumes of low value clients, and it is, it's like walking through mud. I take on 10 clients a year. Finding 10 clients, that's not a huge ask. 10 clients finding me, it's really simple, really straightforward. I think the thing that I would like to kind of leave with people really is it's hard whatever you do, but choose your hard. You can either choose to go out and do all of that networking and kind of be in that environment, or choose to show up on social media and get outside of your comfort zone and use it that way. And there was one more thing I want to say, which is, and this is, I think, what I reached out to you when I said I want to be on your podcast, Sam. It was this thing. I think being a really good financial advisor is 50% being a really good entrepreneur. And if you're not really good at being an entrepreneur, the 50% of you who's a financial advisor doesn't get to be. And so that should be your focus. What are you consuming? What podcasts are you listening to? What are you reading? What courses are you doing? Are you truly developing the entrepreneur side of yourself? And if you're not, that's where your opportunity lies.
Love it. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ceri, for sharing your journey today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.